NRTC Grantee Orientation presented March 31st, 2023. The NRTC team who prepared this presentation may be reached at nrtc@dca.nj.gov. The topics we'll cover are the funding sources and details of the project RFP for state fiscal year 2023, grant agreements, the advancement of grant funds. We'll spend a good bit of time covering reporting requirements. We'll talk about revisions, amendments, closing out grants, and project completion timeframes. And we're very excited to share with you our plans for the future of NRTC. Lastly, the NRTC team's answers to participant questions posed during our live presentation of this grantee orientation. Before we begin, I'd like to welcome our first-time NRTC project grantees. Atlantic Cape Community College for the Inlet neighborhood of Atlantic City, and Atlantic City Development Corporation, or AC DevCo, for the Chelsea neighborhood, also of Atlantic City. From the northern part of the state, in Garfield, Greater Bergen Community Action will be revitalizing the Garfield River to Rail neighborhood, and Habitat for Humanity of Greater Newark will be working in the West and Central Village neighborhood of Newark. We welcome these neighborhoods and organizations into the NRTC fold. Annual NRTC project grants are funded through the Qualified Projects Pool, or QPP, with funds contributed by New Jersey businesses in dollar-for-dollar exchange for New Jersey state tax credit through a competitive process. This year, additional funding was made available to us through the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, or SLFRF, which I will not say 3 times fast, is part of the American Rescue Plan, or ARP. Our challenge was to figure out what to do with these funds. It's times like these that I am especially grateful to have Wendy on our team. She devised the methodology to distribute our windfall. Higher math not being my strong suit, Wendy will explain.
As Susan mentioned, $15 million was contributed by corporations. 5% of this amount is reserved for NRTC program administration. That leaves $14.25 million that is designated to projects. But this year, an additional source of funding was available. $7.5 million was divided among all of the NRTC grants that did not receive full funding in the QPP process. The percentage that awardees received from SLFRF was calculated based on how much funding was received from the qualified pool. As Brad mentioned earlier, this allowed us to at least partially fund all participants of the qualified project pool with a total funding amount of $21.75 million for the FY23 project RFP. For FY23, the grant period will be March 1st of 2023 through December 31st of 2025. The particulars of the agreement between DCA and the grantee are spelled out here in your grant agreement. This includes information about the availability of advancement of grant funds, which I will discuss in the next slide. New for 2023, serial advances. Most project RFPs prior to 2023 have a one-time advance available up to 20% of the award. These funds now need to be expensed within 3 months instead of 4 in the first FSR. But the NRTC team is excited to announce some additional changes to the process for advances. For the FY23 project grants, a 20% advance award is encouraged. Like prior award years, these funds also must be expensed in the first FSR within 3 months. However, once the FSR has been approved, another 20% advance will be available to grantees. This process can be continued until 80% of the grant has been advanced. Although advances are optional for grantees, Those who received SLFRF funding will be strongly encouraged to take advantage of advances to help us satisfy the requirements attached to those funds. So this is Susan's no smoking sign, which is here to tell you that although Sage will allow you to, please do not request an advance directly in Sage. Instead, I'm going to tell you how to request your advance in the next slide. Grantees will need to email a detailed request to their grant manager. This request should include an estimated list of expenses and their related amounts. Please don't worry about whether your estimates are exact. We will not be testing you on whether these expenses exactly match your FSR. Upon approval, your grant manager will submit an advance request on your behalf, and funds will be released shortly after final approval is received. Within 3 months of receipt of funds, you will need to submit an FSR that at a minimum equals the advance amount. For 2023 project grants only, once your FSR is approved with sufficient documentation, you may request an additional advance for up to 20%. This process can repeat until up to 80% of the award has been advanced.
The submission of required reports and updates is how grantees communicate to us at NRTC that activities are moving along. Reporting is also how grantees communicate to the folks at Treasury who hold the purse strings that grants are still active. I'm not sure how frequently it has been evoked, but be forewarned, there is a provision for canceling grants due to non-performance. If you speak Treasury, you know non-performance translates to not reporting. Currently, grantees are doing their own thing with quarterly progress and financial status reporting. For 2023, the NRTC team is standardizing these reports. Next, we'll cover all of these requirements in more detail. What is important to know about submission of the organization's annual audit report and the annual agency information update in Sage is failure to submit them on time can stop an application or grant dead in its tracks. The Office of Audit will suspend the ability to submit if the audit has not been uploaded, and the Sage system itself will prevent submission if the annual agency information update hasn't been completed. Annual audit reports are due 9 months after the close of your organization's fiscal year. And it is important to update contact and other information in Sage as it changes, but you must also verify the information each year with the annual agency information update. I encourage you to be aware of when your organization's annual audits and agency information updates are due and set reminders to ensure they are completed on time. Regarding contact information, please also be sure to inform your grant manager of any changes as they occur. The Quarterly Progress Report, or QPR. As I mentioned, we have standardized our process and the reporting form for which we will provide a template. Many of you routinely provide photos, and we do want you to keep those coming. We do want to see photos of your progress, but we need them uploaded to Sage in an MS Word or PDF document, and please include a caption for every photo. Being quarterly reports, they are of course due every 3 months. Be aware that a past due QPR will prevent submission of an FSR. This may require a bit of coordination because we will want to see the QPR for the related expenses before approving them, if at all possible. On the standardized quarterly progress report template, you will find an instructions tab, which, by the way, we hope to include on all forms we provide, that will explain step by step how to use the form to report progress made towards each activity's original performance measures, and specify how photos should be uploaded to Sage. Numerical data, such as the number of events held or the number of home repairs completed, and the running total completion percentage of each activity will be reported. You'll include a brief narrative about the progress made or barriers to progress being made during the reporting period. Depending on the type of activity or the way it is structured, numerical data may remain consistent through several reporting periods, while incremental progress is being reported in the brief narrative. Quarterly reporting will align with the final QPR and the annual grant report, making completion of those reports quicker and easier for grantees, and the review of those reports quicker and easier for our team.
FSRs need to be submitted at least quarterly. You are welcome to complete more than one FSR in a quarter, but one FSR every 3 months is the minimum. After receiving an advance, your first FSR must equal or exceed the advance amount. Please remember to click on Submit after completing your FSR so that it is visible to your grant manager. Missing or incomplete FSR documentation will lead to delays because your grant manager will have to return it to you for modifications. Finally, the last 5% of your grant award can only be processed after receipt of your final progress report and all closeout documentation. Now on to what we mean by FSR documentation. So now you need to know where FSR documentation should go. To help us review and approve FSRs faster, we are standardizing backup documentation and the way it's uploaded. In the summary upload section, you will need to upload a copy of your general or cash disbursement ledger. Only one of these documents is required here. Then you will upload your new NRTC expense summary under Other. Note, only these 2 documents should be in your summary upload page. Under Detail Upload, you should upload both proof of expense and proof of payment. In the next slides, we will show you what these documents should contain. This is an example of an NRTC expense summary. The one you receive may be slightly different, but it will contain a listing of your expenses by category. There will also be an additional tab for summarizing admin expenses by number of hours and percentages. The notes column is here for you to indicate any differences between receipt totals and requested amounts. And of course, you can add more rows as needed. This is the document that you will upload to Summary Upload along with your general or cash disbursement ledger. Although most of you are used to supplying both proof of expense and proof of payment, this may be new to some of you. Examples of proof of expense is an invoice, a purchase order, an itemized receipt, a billing statement, or a contract. Proof of payment, however, is represented by a cash register receipt, a credit card receipt, a canceled check, or a bank or credit card statement. Please note that a cash register receipt that is itemized can satisfy both requirements. When submitting salary for reimbursement, please highlight payroll expenses in your ledger and include number of hours and percentage charged to NRTC. This information should be submitted as backup documentation in your detail upload. We realize some duplication will occur for admin since your ledger is uploaded to Summary Upload. Also, for group uploads, please group your expenses by expense category. If you have more than 20 individual expenses in a category, a summary sheet listing the expenses must be provided in this document. This documentation will be required in order to have your expenses approved. If you are uncertain about your proof of expense or payment or any other documents, please contact your grant manager for guidance.
After you have carefully followed Wendy's instructions and those well-documented expenses have been approved, you will be able to receive reimbursement or your next requested advance. If your organization is not set up for electronic payments, we strongly encourage you to do so. Visit NJ Start where you will find instructions. Your grant manager will be happy to provide more information about that should you need it. But if you prefer, You could wait for this guy at the bottom of the screen to deliver your paper check. Next, Ishan will talk about annual grant reports.
Hello, my name is Ishan, and I will be managing the annual reporting process for NRTC. Each year, all grantees with open grant during the previous year will receive an email that will contain the format and the necessary documents for the annual report on all open grants for that year. These reports will be requested with a deadline, and I would like to stress the importance of meeting this deadline reliably. Please do not let these reports fall by the wayside. These reports will not be completed or submitted in Sage and should instead be sent to the NRTC email address. This is the activity progress table that will need to be completed for each grant in an annual report. It is designed to align with the quarterly progress report document for ease of use.
Changes to the grant agreement are made in one of two ways, depending on the changes requested. Extensions of the end date and minor budget changes are done through revision of the grant agreement. For more involved budget changes and requests that include changes to grant objectives, an amendment, which is a lengthier process, is required. Although Sage will allow you to do so, please do not initiate a revision or amendment in Sage without first getting grant manager approval and guidance. That symbol may look like I'm telling you to talk to the hand, but I'm not. I'm telling you to talk to your grant manager. The procedure to request changes to the grant agreement is first email your grant manager. Explain exactly what you'd like to change and why you'd like to change it. If approved, your grant manager will guide you through initiating the correct type of change that fits your request and help you avoid the errors that will slow down the process. Once the changes you wish to make have been completed and saved, it's a good practice always to check for errors in Sage, but also have your grant manager review those changes before you click Submit. Keep in mind that while a grant is in revision or amendment, submission of reports is suspended. You may want to consider QPR and FSR submissions in the timing of requests for changes to the agreement. This is a screenshot of what you'll see in Sage once you do consult your grant manager and initiate an amendment and a revision is similar. Your grant manager can help you avoid the look this guy has on his face by ensuring you check the right boxes and complete the amendment or a revision correctly. Again, save but don't submit yet. Have your grant manager review it and remember to check for errors. Befuddled is not a good look for anyone. Next, Wendy will close out this portion of the presentation.
The final quarterly report will be submitted by the due date in your grant agreement. This is the 15th of the month following the closing date of your grant. Along with your final quarterly report, you will also submit your closeout documents in Sage. You will no longer email these documents. A listing of closeout documents along with the applicable files will be provided to you by your grant manager. Your final FSR will include the final 5% of the award and can be processed once all of these documents are received in Sage.
Speaking of closing out grants, more often than not, we have repeatedly extended grant agreements, which is something we will be moving away from. Now, before panic sets in, let me explain. For your existing and future grants, we will continue to work with you to extend the end dates to get projects completed. But going forward, we want you to plan your projects to be completed within the time frame of the grant period. For some of you, it may mean looking at structuring project applications a bit differently than you've done in the past. You may need to conceptualize projects in phases and plan to complete a phase within the time frame of the grant period. Now, and more so in the future, proper planning and on-time completion factors in to the project track record score for project grant applications. Hand in hand with on-time completion, we will be moving towards limiting the number of open grants per NRTC neighborhood. This, of course, is not happening now, or tomorrow, or next week. It will take time, but this is the direction NRTC is moving in. Completing projects within the grant period will become increasingly important as we move towards limiting the number of open project grants per NRTC neighborhood, because it may impact your eligibility for application rounds. And now, looking ahead. Regarding transparency, we have been able to provide application score sheets for applications not scoring high enough to be included in the qualified projects pool, but we have not done so for successful applications. We intend to build into our process the practice of routinely providing score sheets for all applications that meet threshold review requirements. We also plan to ensure score sheets for applications that don't make the QPP are routinely reviewed with applicants soon after the application round has concluded. Serial advances and some tweaks to our internal approval process will lead to more predictability for grantees. The standardization of forms and documentation requirements we've presented will make grant management more efficient, as will planning future projects for on-time completion. Our plans of reducing paper for future neighborhood plan submission will bring efficiency to that process as well. All of these program enhancements will save us so much time and energy that could be well spent on continued process improvement as well as in-person monitoring visits. This is something only Chris on our team has done before. His tenure with the program precedes the pandemic, while the rest of us joined during the time of COVID. We are anxious to visit NRTC neighborhoods to see the revitalization fruits of your labor and connect with you face to face. We look forward to seeing you in 2024. What follows are participant questions from our live presentation and the NRTC team's answers to those questions. Will the new advance process apply to previous NRTC grants? No. Serial advances are available with FY 2023 NRTC project grants only at this time. Initial advances must be expensed within 3 months. Does this apply to subsequent serial advances? Yes. The 3-month time period now applies to all advances. When does the 3-month period for expensing advances begin? The expenditure clock starts ticking when the request for advanced funds reaches payment complete status in SAGE. Although grantees are expected to adhere to the 3-month period, the NRTC team will be flexible within reason. FSRs submitted a few days past the 3-month period will not be a problem. If any type of reporting will be late, it is a good practice to be in communication with your grant manager. If an advance is not expensed within 3 months, can grantees just not submit another advance request until it is expensed? No. Grantees are expected to plan for and time advance requests to be expensed within 3 months. Regular grant activity, which is monitored by Treasury, is essential. Delinquency in reporting may impact approval of subsequent advances. Are serial advances permanent or available this year only because of the additional funds? Serial advances are being piloted for FY 2023. This change is not related to the one-time SLFRF funding the NRTC program received this year, and if successful, could become a permanent feature of our program. When can an initial advance request be made? As soon as the grant is fully funded in SAGE, an advance may be requested by following the procedure Wendy explained. Can grantees request an advance for less than 20% of the award? Yes, grantees may request up to 20% of the award in a single advance and may request a smaller percentage. The total amount of funds advanced over the life of the grant may not exceed 80% of the award. After the advance is requested, how long before funds are received? The NRTC team will process requests as quickly as possible, but we cannot give a precise number of days that it will take to receive payment. Will the new standardized documentation templates be required for previous grants, and if so, how quickly? Yes, we are moving towards standardizing all documentation, but if any documentation is currently in process, there is no need to redo it on the standardized forms. Grantees experiencing difficulties transitioning to the new standardized forms should consult with their grant managers. Can an FSR and a QPR for the same quarter be submitted on the same day, or does one have to be approved before submitting the other? A quarterly progress report, or QPR, and an FSR, or financial status report, may be submitted on the same day. The QPR does not have to be approved before the FSR is submitted, but your grant manager may request a progress update before approving expenses. It is important to remember that a past due QPR will prevent the submission of an FSR in SAGE. Will scorecards be provided for successful 2023 project grant applications? No. The application review team will prepare score sheets for distribution to all applicants beginning with the fiscal year 2024 project application. Will justification for the score in each category or a rubric be provided so that we can improve our submission moving forward? No. The review team will provide comments for low scores, but not for high-scoring sections of the application. The rubric to follow is the overview and guidelines document for the application round. It is very important to give complete answers to multi-part questions and provide all information requested exactly how and where it is requested. Will an organization that has not yet started a neighborhood plan be eligible for the 2024 project grant round? Neighborhood plans are extensive, covering a 10-year period. These plans reflect the vision the residents and other stakeholders have for their community and must include their input. Coordination with the municipality and others who are investing in the neighborhood is a part of the process. A neighborhood plan could take a year or more to come to fruition. Will approval determinations about neighborhood plans submitted to NRTC before June 30th, 2022 be made in time for the FY 2024 project grant round? The NRTC team is working to advance these plans through the determination process with the goal of those approved being eligible for the next grant round. Because dates for the next round are unknown at this time, we cannot guarantee this, but we are working towards this goal. Will neighborhood plan updates be due at the end of June? Neighborhood plans are updated at the 5-year mark of the plan. When will grant agreements be completed? We expect the process to be completed within 30 to 60 days. On what date can expenditures begin? The grant period for almost every grantee will be March 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2025. Expenses incurred beginning March 1st, 2023 may be paid with these grant funds. When will the NRTC contributors and amounts be released, and will the percentage of QPP funds and SLFRF funds be distinguished? The funding details will be released in the coming days and published to the NRTC website. Yes, funding sources of awards will be distinguished. Information specific to recipients of SLFRF funding will be forthcoming. How do projects that were not fully funded proceed? Partially funded applications are returned to the applicant for modifications reflecting the award amount. Grant managers will provide assistance as needed. A few things to keep in mind. Sage Help will give you step-by-step instructions for completing processes in the system, so please do use it. Sometimes delays have been the result of a grantee initiating and completing all the steps of a process, but failing to actually submit it. Please remember to click Submit if it's something you want to submit to us. We do our best to provide clear instructions for applications and processes. Please carefully read them and provide information exactly as requested. With regard to grant applications, failing to provide information as requested could result in a lower application score, which could potentially be a $1 million mistake for applicants. Finally, if you have questions, please reach out to your grant manager. If we don't have an answer, we will find one. We are here to help. For questions about this grantee orientation or for general inquiries about the NRTC program, contact us at nrtc@dca.nj.gov. The NRTC team is here to help.